Hey class, Doug Brown here. Just wanted to share a few tips. I'm working on your papers now, trying to get all those graded today as quickly and accurately as I can, give you some feedback. But a couple things I always try to share with the class each term. Just a couple little important points, not going to keep you here too long. First of all, if you use the citation or reference option in Word, if you use Perla or any of the other programs that are out there, I urge caution because what happens with those programs, they're only as good as the information that you put in them. So your citations and references are not always correct. Even though you may use that program, it's not always accurate. It is up to you. It's your responsibility to make sure that you get the citations and the references correct following APA. That's a huge deal on the final. I will coach you along. I'm a little flexible as we go along in the class with that because I want to help you. Obviously the material, the discussions and learning research, they're the main thing, but it all goes together. It's all important. Be careful about using those programs. Refer to the OWL at Purdue. Use the links, APA information in the class to help you get that accurately. Don't just plug it in and submit a paper because you'll miss points if you don't check that. Another thing that I wanted to point out is I want you to really look at the template that I shared along with those tips on APA and research because it's important that we get the headers correct. We add a page number to the title page. We include running head. Keep in mind running head is only on the first page and then the header is on the second page, but we remove running head from those. So it's important to look at those. Don't use words like firstly and lastly. Don't use the term in conclusion. Firstly, lastly, etc. Those words, you will see them a lot in newspapers and books and that sort of thing. But in academia, they are considered lazy. The thing that I tend to get in trouble with is using etc. You'll see that in my feedback. I forget about it, but it's lazy on my part. So try not to get used to using firstly, lastly, etc. Because again, it is considered lazy. Instead of saying in conclusion in your final paragraph of your paper, don't use that. Instead, put a header in there that's centered in bold, that's called conclusion, and just write the conclusion. We know it's the conclusion because it's your last paragraph. It's like our first paragraph where I ask you not to include the header introduction. We already know it's the introduction. It's the first paragraph in the paper, therefore it must be the introduction, right? Same thing with the conclusion. We don't have to say in conclusion. We know it's the conclusion already because it's the last paragraph. So just put a header in there following APA. Make it bold if you don't mind. Center it, level 1 header, and call it conclusion and just write. Now, I also ask that you get used to third person writing. Don't talk about me. Don't say I, us, etc. Just write. Write in third person. So we want to avoid placing ourselves in the paper even if the instructions ask you to share your own thoughts about something. Take yourself out. My department, etc. Take yourself out of that. And just to discuss the paper, the agency, the other people involved. Not you, not us. Just write in third person. Now you'll find some tips on third person writing in the class. It takes a little bit of work. You're going to forget about it sometimes. You're going to see me constantly remind you. But just start getting used to that now if you don't mind. It's just a good practice. Really, really look at that template. It's important that we use that template and those tips to help us to get those headers right, to get the information that we discuss. cite. You'll see me in the feedback say cite, 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 cite. You'll see that. To the point that at the end of the class, you're going to hate me for saying that. But the reason I do that is I want you to get used to supporting your ideas, the findings, the information you find. In a research proposal, any paper really, we cannot speculate. If we speculate and share our opinion about something, that's all it is. In academia, we must support our findings with research. And again, this is a proposal, but it's good to get used to doing that now. If we make a statement and it is not supported with evidence in an academic paper, that's thrown out. Academics consider that to be non-valid. It's invalid because it's not backed up with research to support your claim. Otherwise, again, it's just speculation. So I want you to get used to doing that. And it's so easy for us because we see that problem within our agency or whatever we're working on, and we know it's a problem, but we have to have that evidence to support it. And I want you to be careful about using personal communication. You can use that, but be very, very careful. I don't want you to overquote. In a short paper that's only a couple of pages, a couple of quotes is it. In your final paper, you only get a few direct quotes. We'll talk more about that as we go on. I want to hear what you have to say, see what you have to say after reading the textbook and going out and finding the research that's available to support what you have to say, not what you speculate on, not what you believe should happen, what you can find in the research. So it's important to get used to doing that. Always check your grammar if you don't mind. If you do not have a subscription to Grammarly, you can get it free. Just go to Grammarly, you plug in Anna Maria College, you'll get it free, it doesn't cost you anything. If you have a PC, an older PC, one thing I've noticed is I have an Acer S3 that I use for some applications, and then I just recently made the switch to an Apple. I received an Apple for my birthday, a Mac, and I'm in love with the thing, by the way. So for you younger folks out there who have been using Apple for a while, you can make fun of me, that's okay. But what I've learned about my Acer, even though that thing is full of it's a supercomputer, if you will, in my book anyway, but I don't get out often. It's older now. But what I've noticed about Grammarly, it sort of slows down the processing speed just a little bit, but it's worth it. You can take it off later on when you're finished with it, but it is worth it. Get you a Grammarly subscription if you don't have that. It really is free, and it's a good investment of your time and energy to check everything with Grammarly, including your discussions. One of the things that I encourage you to do is, write your discussions in Word and check it with Grammarly and copy and paste that into the discussion board. Sometimes you'll have to do some adjustment with the heading, but that's okay. Now, don't copy and paste information from sources. Make sure I want to see those words in your own writing. I want to hear what you have to say based upon your own thoughts, what you find in the research, not what you've copied and pasted. The VeriCite score, once you look at those VeriCite scores, 35%. So if you submit a paper and it's higher than 35%, with a little bit of wiggle room, I'm going to give you a 0 and give you the feedback and ask you to revise and resubmit that if you don't mind. And then give you some other tips on your paper, feedback on your paper as well. So look at that. Look at the template. Look at the tips. Please consider those headers, those page numbers, using Grammarly. Remember the VeriCite score. Write in third person if you don't mind. Don't use firstly. Don't use lastly. Don't use in conclusion. Avoid contractions. So don't say wouldn't, couldn't, isn't. Spell that out. Avoid using those contractions as well. That's it. It's been about 10 minutes. I don't want to keep you too long. Thank you for all you do. You're off to a great start. Great week. I'm grading your papers. I'll have them back to you soon. If you need my help, do not hesitate to contact me. That's what I'm here for. See you in the discussions.